Welcome to PSY 316, Study Section 6. What do we remember? Introduction. This lecture explains what you remembered through your memory. You have already learned that you tend to easily remember meaningful, well-organized information. Material that is remembered well also has some other characteristics. The lecture explains few of these characteristics of the information you remember. Objectives. At the end of the lecture, you should be able to 1. Explain the characteristics of the information you remember, and 2. Differentiate between the recency and primacy effect. Pretest. 1. Mention some of the characteristics of information we remember. 2. What is the primacy effect? Content. Characteristics of information you remember. 1. You tend to remember what is presented first and last. Serial position curve. If you have ever gone through a receiving line at a wedding or some other social affair, you may remember being introduced to 8 or 10 or so new people, one right after the other. By the time you had shaken the last hand, it's probably that you remember the names of the 2 people you met first and 2 you met last, and forgot the names of those in the middle. The serial position curve is taken as evidence for the distinction between short-term and long-term memory. That is, you remember the final items, recency effect, because they are still in short-term memory, and you remember the initial items, primacy effect, because they have entered long-term memory. 2. You tend to remember the unusual von Richthofen effect. If someone in the middle of the line had a name that was famous or distinctive, you would remember it provided it was not difficult for you to pronounce or spell, that you were unable to get into your memory in the first place. This tendency to remember an unusual item, regardless of its position in the list, is named after von Richthofen, the psychologist who first presented it. 3. You tend to remember links to emotional, significant events, flashbulb memories. Late in the 19th century, a researcher asked 197 middle-aged and old people whether they remembered where they had been when they heard that Abraham Lincoln had been shot. Colgrove, 1982. 33 years after assassination, 127 of those questioned were able to give a full description, including the time of the day, the exact location, and the identity of the person who had brought the news. This kind of autobiography memory has been called a flashbulb memory. A vivid relocation of what one was doing when one heard about significant event. Brown and Cole-Leake, 1977. It is simply there, ready to appear in stunning detail at the merest hint. It is as if our nervous system took a multimedia snapshot of the sounds, sight, smell, weather, emotional climate, even the body posture we experience at certain moments. Benderley, 1981. The snapshot is not complete. However, it usually includes certain basic elements, such as where you were, what you were doing before the shock, who gave you the news, what you did next, and how you and others felt about the event. But it generally captures some travel details and leaves out others. You may remember who telephoned to you about the explosion in Ikeja Cantonment in January 28, 2002, and at what time of the day. But you may not remember what papers were on your desk or what you were wearing. You may remember a smell of family day mingling with the scent of cut flowers as you sat in the hospital room listening to a red-bearded doctor tell you that an illness was even more serious than you had feared. but you may not remember the color of the walls. The event that captures such memories can be a moment out of history or out of your personal life. A flashbulb memory occurs at a moment of surprise, of shock, and of great personal biological significance. Most flashbulb memories, however, are of events that are significant personally rather than nationally. Brown and Kulik, 1977. When a group of students were asked to report the three most vivid autobiographical memories of their lives, almost all were of personally important events. For example, events involving injuries or accidents, sports, members of the opposite sex, and animals. Suppose that you saw a dangerous animal attack someone in front of you. Your life could be saved by remembering exactly what time of the day it was, where you were, and what you were doing at the time of the attack, so that you could avoid such an encounter in future. 4. We reconstruct memory by filling in the gaps. We can see how retrieval mechanism works when we search our minds for a memory, using certain clues to lead us to our goal. Suppose that someone asks you what you were doing at 12 noon exactly 1 year ago today. First, you will establish the date. Then, you will probably place yourself geographically. Then, you may think of your usual weekly schedule. Then, you will narrow your possibilities until you come up with what you want. The process does help us come up with many elusive memories. However, it also leads to false memories. Several lines research with childhood memories, with the reconstruction of stories read or heard with parents' memories of their children's development, with eyewitnesses, testimony all lead to the same conclusion. In their zeal to be logical and fill in the gaps, people often invent material and then are sure that they are remembering it. Filling in the gaps can have life or death implications when it takes place in eyewitnesses' testimony. Summary. The lecturer has been able to explain some of the major characteristics of the information we remember. The lecture further expatiated on the differences between the primacy and recency effect. Post-test. What is recency effect? 2. How do we construct memory by filling in the gaps? End of study section 6. Thank you for listening.